Hi everyone, welcome to Woolen Spinning. My name is Rachel. I was going to say what episode number this is, but I honestly can't remember. I hope that this finds you really well, and I hope that you guys are doing really well this weekend. Katrina and Felicia and I decided to dip our toes in and see if we could get away for a girls' weekend and just sort of, see if with sort of some of the opening and whatnot, if we could do that. So this is episode, let me get the number, I think it's 220. And as you can see, it is pre-recorded. I hope that this finds you really well. I hope you guys are having a wonderful weekend. We did this as a premiere episode so that you guys would still enjoy the live chat, because I think that's really important for everybody. And I get to join in the chat this weekend as well, because really, I get to do whatever I want. So outside of making some breakfast, I get to lounge around and spin and be a participant for once. Last time we did a premiere was on Canadian Thanksgiving, and I had tried to connect, but we were having a lot of connectivity issues that morning, and I wasn't able to join. So really super fun to be able to be in the chat and to participate. So if you guys have any questions throughout the show, just tag me if you can, and I'll be sure to answer them, because I will be watching along right with you. I don't really pay attention to what's like the pre-recorded show, because I obviously made it. So I focus mostly on the chat. So that is really fun to be able to actually focus 100% of my attention on the chat, which of course when we're doing our live streams, it's not quite as easy to do that. So I hope that you enjoyed the show today, and without further ado, let's run the credits and we'll get right into the show. I've got a couple of things to show you. We're going to get on the wheel again this week and share with you my most recent spin that I've been working on. And I had mentioned it briefly in the show previously, but I haven't really shown you the spinning on the wheel, because I'm spinning across the top. So I thought that some of you would maybe find that helpful. And we've got lots of community participation this week to share with you that I'm quite excited about. And I also thought I would give you an update on my Jacob breed and color study, because so many people have been sharing their progress, and I wanted to share with you mine, since I'm doing it on support spindles, and that's what we'll be talking about in the content for spinning pearls and how I spin coming up in November. So it'll kind of give you a taster, if you will, of what I've been working on. So let's get into it. So I got a new mug from the kids this week, and I wanted to share it with you. As you guys may know, who've been around for a long time, I love The Nightmare Before Christmas. It's one of my favorite movies, and so the kids bought me this mug, and Jack Skellington actually turns and moves. And on the back, this is the town, for those of you who know Halloween Town. And then on the back is, at first I thought it was just the cliff where Jack Skellington is standing. So at first I thought it was just him on the cliff, because that's one of the famous images from the movie. But if you look closely and you let your eyes blur a little bit, the boogeyman is in there. So that's his face, the Oogie Boogie Man. And yeah, so the kids found this for me, and they bought it. I have Zero as well. So for those who know who Zero is, I have him, and he joined us on the podcast last year, because the Halloween fell on a Saturday last year. So we were visited by Zero in the show. So for those who know the movie and know what I'm talking about, that is what the kids got me, which it was so kind of them when they saw it to think of me and to get it for me. So we are getting close to the Halloween season. The kids and I are going to the pumpkin patch with my mom next Wednesday. I don't think we're going to be doing any other Halloween-y stuff. We're just kind of running out of time, to be honest with you. And with me being away this weekend, it sort of cuts into our time of being able to do some of this stuff. But I'm hoping to be able to carve pumpkins with the kids, and we'll probably do it on the Saturday, right, the day before Halloween. The kids actually grew their own pumpkins this year, so they each have 2. There's 4 in total. They are absolutely massive. They are so big. We're talking like huge pumpkins, like think Hagrid-sized pumpkins, like huge. And so we are, we're gonna sort of see if we can carve them. They're so big that I'm actually a little bit concerned that they're not, that they won't be very easy to carve, but we'll see. We'll cut into them on the 30th and see if we can get them carved. So if we do, I'll take some photos and I'll put the kids next to the pumpkins for scale so that you guys can see how big these pumpkins are. The kids grew them. There was no fertilizer involved, but they've been getting orange at the back door, and we cut them off like we were supposed to when you're supposed to, and then pulled them out of the veggie patch and let them dry, and that's what we did. So that's going to be really fun. So I would love to hear from you guys what you're doing. If you celebrate Halloween, or like, we don't really celebrate Halloween. It's my least favorite holiday. But we do have fun, and we have a cul-de-sac gathering on Halloween Eve, together, all of us. So we have a big fire, and the kids only go to a few houses, because we have a deal with them that they can pick out 10 pieces of candy and we'll take the rest and give them $10. So we sort of have this deal with them, to sort of curb the Halloween candy after Halloween night, because usually what happens is on Monday they each take a piece and then it's gone. That's kind of it. So it just curbs it a little bit and keeps it from going on for too long. And then the focus becomes on our friends and the community and being together. And I think my mom will come this year, hopefully, fingers crossed. So yeah, it'll be really fun. So I'd love to hear from you guys what you do. I know in some parts of the world, Halloween's not really a thing. But here it's been quite a thing since I was a kid. Like, I remember being a kid and going out and it being really busy on Halloween, and lots of stuff. And when I worked in Emerge, that's what really put me off, was working in Emerge on Halloween night and stuff. So you guys can only imagine. And it'll be interesting to see what is going to happen this year, because fireworks, for the first time, they've been banned, and they're like against the law to have now. Firecrackers have been like that since the 90s, I think. But now there's no fireworks allowed either. So due to injuries and so on. So it'll be really interesting to see if there are any fireworks and what that looks like. So yeah, report back. Tell me what your plans are for next weekend. And we will have a live stream on the Saturday next week, which will be really fun on the 30th. So it'll be good to see you guys and to have you all here right on Halloween weekend again. So we have to celebrate the little things, you guys. Otherwise, it just wouldn't. It just, the time gets away from us and we just end up not having... Well, it's not that we don't have a lot of fun, but, you know, we have to embrace all this stuff and just enjoy it right now, because life is pretty crazy, and it's been a crazy couple of years, hasn't it? So, all right, without further ado, let's get onto the wheel, and I will share with you this current spin that I'm working on. I had talked about it a little bit, so I'll just give you sort of a quick and dirty reminder of what it is, and then we'll get to the spinning. So I'll see you on the other side. So this is from Itsy Bitsy Experiments, Itsy Bitsy Yarn Shop up in Yellowknife, up in Whitehorse in Yukon. And I haven't even taken the label off. It's been sitting on there since I started spinning this. I'm not really sure why. So this is 100% superfine baby alpaca. And she does these sort of dyeing experiments, and then she sells them in the shop. And when we were up there in the summer of 2019, I saw it and I really liked it. And even though I tend to be quite sensitive to alpaca, I thought, you know, I'll just see how it goes, and you know, hopefully I'll be able to spin it. And if not, I'll just spin it outside. So I'm spinning this on my Kromsky Minstrel, and I find the Kromsky Minstrel, for me personally, I really like it running in double drive. So you can see here that I've got the drive band looped in a figure 8, and it's going over the smaller end of the bobbin, the smaller whirl. You can see that this side is quite a bit bigger. This end is used for Scotch tension, or for when you're running double drive on bigger whirls. So when you're using the bigger whirls, you can flip your bobbin and use the bigger whirl on the back of your bobbin. And I find actually that sometimes getting the tension correct with double drive, that actually really helps. So you use the smaller end with your smaller whirl. So this is the smaller whirl of sort of my 4 options. I'm using the smallest one, and this is 18:1. I think this is 15:1, but I'm not sure. Can't remember actually. And I've got my singles. One of the things that I don't like about this flyer is that the hooks don't go down both sides. So one of the things that I would prefer to see is that these hooks are on the other side, and that they're offset to the hooks on the other side of the flyer arm. So it would be nice if there was a hook here, right in between these two, and then there was a hook here and here. And then you could go up and down and you wouldn't get a lot of peaks and valleys, because I do find with this wheel that there are a lot of peaks and valleys. I found that when I owned this wheel previously, and of course now owning it again, you know, it sort of all came back to me in terms of sort of those peaks and valleys. But this wheel has a very special place in my heart, because it was, the original wheel was given to me by my now deceased aunt, who was one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, and who Nora is actually named after. And she had given me a little bit of money, and when she died, and the wheel that I bought was a Kromsky Minstrel. And then I sort of thought, well, you know, I've kind of outgrown it. You know, I'd really like to get into a different type of wheel. I'll replace it. And I bought the Lendrum at the time, and I also bought the Shacked Matchless. I got it secondhand from my friend Felicia. I bought a Shacked Sidekick. I was kind of going through wheels and testing them and trying them. I would spin on them for sort of 6 to 9 months, almost a year, and then sort of move on to other things until I sort of settled on what I really liked the best. And that's sort of what ended up happening with the original Kromsky Minstrel. While I'm sort of sad that to have seen it go, I'm also really glad to be able to come back to this wheel later and spin on it now that I'm a more experienced spinner, and I sort of have more of a knowledge base to draw upon, because my original one I ran pretty much always in Scotch tension. And I think this wheel really does very well in double drive, and I actually prefer it in double drive. I don't find it necessarily any quieter in double drive. It tends to be a chattery wheel. There's a lot of moving parts. You've got the treadles move in multiple places. You've got the, you guys can even see at the back of the wheel there, all of those parts they're all moving, right? They're all articulating. And I do find it's a chattery wheel, and it does need a certain amount of oil for sure. However, for spinning this 18 to 1, it's actually making quite a nice singles. I kind of started this as an effort to sort of clear some stuff out of my stash, for one, but also because I had bought this right, you know, when we were up north, and it's associated with some really good memories. When I started spinning it, I found it was a little bit compacted and a little bit fulled in places. It's not felted, but it's definitely fulled in places. And when I went to start trying to strip it down, it was really pulling and almost kind of ripping the fiber, and I was really not enjoying or particularly liking the fact that the fiber was almost getting ruined or sort of ripped. So I decided to abandon ship, and I actually just sort of started spinning right off the top. So the way that I spin off the top, and I will zoom in the camera at some point, I use my back hand, so it almost looks like my forward hand is doing all of the work, but actually it's just drafting the fiber. And I'm drafting about an inch back. I'm sort of draft. It's about an inch back. It's not really super long stapled. You wouldn't expect a really super long stapled fiber when this is a baby camel. There are some very fine guard hairs in here. They're not coarse like what you would expect from an adult. And I suspect this has been sort of de-haired, but I'm not totally sure. I don't know a lot about how this is prepped. It feels a bit more like roving than it does like comb top, but it's got a really, really nice feel to it, and it's drafting beautifully. So when I draft out, it drafts like the fibers realign really quickly. And I think part of that is because of the fine nature of this. Like, this is really fine. It's needing quite a bit of twist. It likes twist. I can feel it when it's not twisted enough. So my forward hand is just drafting. Like I was saying, it looks like it's doing a lot of work and that my backhand is not doing any work, but that's actually not the case. My backhand is actually guiding my forward hand. So every time I want to move, and every time I want to move to a different area of the comb top, my backhand is actually the hand that's doing all of that work. So my backhand is actually guiding the fiber and is actually telling my forward hand where it can draw from next, so that I can continue to work across. If you stay in one spot and you don't move, you're going to start moving down one side of the top. So you're going to find yourself down here in the pink, and you still have all of this sort of undyed mauvey purple, sort of, it's a combination of undyed and a really super light purple. It's really pretty. You're going to kind of miss the rest of that color. And one of the things that I really like about spinning off the top is the long, slow transitions of color. If you don't strip your fiber down, you've got this beautiful prep to be able to spin from. And the nice thing about that is that you now have chunks of dyed fiber. Like this is all, you know, hand painted and hand dyed. So you've got this sort of wine colored grapey kind of purple, and then we've got some dark purple, and we've got some real sort of red wine purple, and then we're back to that sort of dark grape type purple, and then the mauve, light mauve, undyed kind of area of the top. So in the finished yarn, if you preserve that, you end up with these very long, slow transitions of color. You're going to get some Barber Pulling. And we saw that actually in the samples in Unbraided when Katrina and I were working on that book. In the 2-ply samples where we didn't do as much stripping and we just spun, you could actually see those areas where the colors still marl and twist with each other, and they still make they still make some Barber Pulling, but it's very subtle and it's very, very pleasing to the eye, or at least I think it is, because you sort of, in the knitting, you end up with this lovely movement of color as it sort of moves from one to the other slowly, and almost sort of like some blending in the knit stitches, just like what we saw in my Jingle pullover in the colorwork yoke, where we ended up with red and then yellow and then green, and the yellow was only very small. I think it was only 1 or 2 rounds, but it was all together. And again, that was spun, you know, to sort of keep those color transitions intact. So my backhand is guiding that fiber at the forward. So wherever my thumb is and my pointer finger in behind, that is where you're going to draft from. That is where there will be enough tension on the fibers to be able to continue to draft. And as you can see, I'm kind of doing a short backward, draft, draft on. As I'm talking, I'm kind of defaulting between sort of a short backward and a short forward. This fiber is so fine that, to be honest with you, like the big thing here is that it wants to spin fine because it's so fine. You know, the finer the fibers, they tend to need more twist, and they tend to demand to spin lower twist. And we find that in the wool circle often, which is our live stream where we spend all of our time on the wheel. We often find that these fibers, they want to draft fine, you know, and when we force them and try to spin thicker, the yarns just aren't as pleasing, you know. So when we talk about, you know, spinning fibers intuitively and just, you know, sitting down and spinning how the fiber wants to be spun, there is actually some wisdom to that, you know, because these fibers do tend to kind of tell us how they want to be spun. You can feel when a long wool or a toothier or higher micron count wool is being spun too hard. You know, when it just resists that twist, you can feel that. Whereas with something like this, if I don't put enough twist into it, it's just gonna fall apart. I'm not even gonna be able to get back to the fiber supply to be able to draft the next bit of fiber, because it's just gonna resist being, well, it's not gonna be able to, it's not gonna be structurally sound. It's going to fall apart. I keep saying gonna. It's so I hate that. So I'm trying to break my habit of gonna. You're gonna see. I just I've been really trying to say going to, or using a different phrase. So actually, you guys wouldn't have been able to see it because the camera is too far out. but there was just a guard hair that just went through, and that was the first one that I've seen in a really super long time that was a little bit thicker and a little bit more like what we would think of as a guard hair. And that'll either come out in the knitting or it's just part of the yarn now. And I'm happy either way. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. So I don't know how long this spin is going to take for me to finish. It's been really tying up this wheel for a really super long time. And I do actually need to get it off the wheel to get back to spinning flax. So I will be sort of looking at trying to get this finished and get this off of this wheel soon-ish. But this has not been a fast spin. However, I have also not made it a priority. I must admit. I'll be the first to say that this has not been a priority. It's been sitting while I've been spinning other things. Some stuff for queries and explorations, because we've been looking at some textured yarns and art yarns recently. And some things for the wool circle. We've been continuing on with our luxury fibers and looking at our 50-50 wool silk blends. And I've also been working on breed and color study on Jacob, on my spindles. So when I'm out and about at the kids' soccer games and whatnot, I've been really enjoying spinning on my spindles and taking advantage of that time to work on those spins that have just been really enjoyable, to be honest. So let's finish up here and we'll get back on the main camera. And this is it for what I've been working on. I have not been working on a whole lot of other stuff. So we'll talk about my breed and color study on my Jacob on my spindles next. And then we'll do some community participation. I'll see you guys on the other side. So I had one more thing that I wanted to just sort of slide in here, if you will, and share with you. It was something that I was a little bit bummed about when we were away for Canadian Thanksgiving, and I probably wouldn't have figured out that there was an issue if it hadn't have been for us going away and me bringing along all of my really super warm woolly socks. So what I'm going to show you is you know, it's hard to see, unfortunately, because I've got blue sock blockers and I've got blue socks. These were indigo dyed years ago, and I included these socks in one of our months that we explored through 2017 and 2018, our hand spun socks. And if you guys want to know more about all of that content that we made back then, that was all about socks for those couple of years. We did, I think in the year, I think I knit like 10 or 12 pairs of socks. And I had told you guys back then that I would let you know and keep you posted about the wear and tear. These were some of my favorite that I had made out of the entire study. These were woolen spun 3-ply Suffolk socks, and they were indigo dyed later at my friend Kelsey's house, and we threw a whole bunch of stuff into an indigo vat. It was a chemical indigo vat, and we just had a lot of fun. My friend Jess was there, Mari. We had a really wonderful afternoon. The kids came along, they played and played and played. Kelsey's mom brought out the wooden trains for the kids to play, and they were doing that, and Rucker, their dog, was around. It was just a really wonderful day. I look back on it with a lot of fondness. So I pulled my socks out to get them ready for our trip, and I took them along. I didn't look at them that closely. I certainly don't walk around with my socks on sock blockers, and I was really surprised when I pulled them on the Thursday morning. It was the day after we got there on the Wednesday, and then we were setting up and the kids were doing schoolwork and stuff on Thursday, and I was cold. So I pulled these on, and my plan was to pull my slippers on over top that I knit quite a number of years ago now, and I wear them all the time. They've got a hole in the bottom of them as well. And I'll throw a photo in here of those slippers. I made them quite a long time ago. I'll try to find the name of them and the pattern. I modified them quite significantly, but I wear them all the time. They've been the best slippers. So I pulled on my socks, and let me hold these up to the camera to see if you guys can see. And this is the heel. So the heel is completely unraveled, and there's actually yarn here that's sort of from the unraveling. And I'm sorry it's sort of a bit dark, but I'll turn it so that you guys can really see against the wall there, because this is sort of a light gray. And so you can see how it's unraveled. And then I noticed after we were home, I have some other holes as well. So I've got a hole here, and then I've got wear patterns down here, all through in the sole here, right below the toe, kind of on the ball of the foot. And it's through on both sides. So quite significant holes there. I think this side is actually worse than the other side. And then the exact same wear patterns on this one as well. So let me hold it up again so that it's near the gray. Wear patterns all through here, all threadbare. And then the same thing halfway down the foot on this one. There's a tear somewhere. I can't find it. Right here, right in there. Right where the fold is actually. And then again on the heel, I've got where it's all unraveled and completely come undone. It's actually, this one's quite bad. This one's worse than the other one. It's got quite a few holes on other parts of the Fish Lips Kiss heel. So unfortunately there's all of these holes through here. So I was really bummed when I put them on and I kind of found all of these wear holes and whatnot. And then I thought, you know, I have worn these more than any other pair of hand knit socks, whether it's hand spun or hand knit. I have worn these more than any other pair of socks. They have served me incredibly well. Part of me kind of wants to see if I can fix them and see, I do have some of this yarn left, and see if I can, you know, graft and do the whole thing. And then the other part of me is kind of happy to put them in sock boneyard and sort of just use them as an example of sort of what happens to socks as you wear them. I can see how there's parts of the yarn like this here that's kind of unraveling. It's very, very softly spun, and it's actually quite airy and quite gently spun, like it's just like unspun, under twisted. And I am partially wondering if that's partly the way that I knit, that I'm maybe untwisting my yarns a little bit. So this yarn was quite high twist when I made it, and I'm wondering if now, after wearing them so much, wearing them in my hiking boots, wearing them in my Blundstones, wearing them in boots that tend to have really not soft, squishy, foamy soles, but like actually like, you know, you're walking on a hard surface. My hiking boots are full shank hiking boots, so they're quite, you know, quite tough on my socks. I do find that I go through more socks the more I wear my hiking boots. However, they're incredibly warm and they're really great boots. I can walk for days in those boots. So I do wonder if these socks are a little bit more broken down than some of my other pairs because I'm wearing them in such hardy boots. They're just not as soft inside. They're not, you know, a runner that's going to be really super gentle on a sock. So I don't know, but I thought I would share it with you anyways, because these poor socks, they have seen better days. They've been worn a ton. I do wonder if having them sit in my drawer for a couple of months over the summer, if maybe they got a bit of wear and tear. I do find that if you're not circulating and rotating your knits really super often, stuff does tend to start breaking down. You do have to pull it out and check it every so often. You can't just throw stuff into the corner and think that it's going to be okay. These are living, breathing items, and they're made with organic materials that are going to break down over time. So I just thought I would share, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do about fixing them, but and whether I'll be able to. I think it's a little bit too extensive, and I do wonder about walking on a pad if I start doing like grafted sections and whatnot over top. I'm not sure that I would particularly like that. And heels are hard to fix, like that type of a heel. It's so extensive, but we'll see. We'll see. These were Fish Lips Kiss heel. It's a great pattern. It's $1 on Ravelry. It doesn't cost anything, and it's my default sock knitting pattern. So I'll throw up a photo. Hopefully I did throw up a photo of my slippers, and they need to be fixed as well, but those are worth it to fix because there's only one spot that needs to be reinforced. So, all right, on with the show. So for my breeding color study, I've been really torn about what to do with the kit. I had a couple of ideas, but nothing that I've sort of thought of or that I've come up with has really been what really sort of speaks to me, if you will. So I'm going to try a couple of things while we're away at our retreat and just sort of play through some ideas that I have. But I'm really torn. I just don't really know what I want to do with it. And I might talk to Katrina about getting a second kit and just making the natural colors go a bit further. But I'm also very aware of my time and taking on too much. So what I have been working on is the carded nests. And I've been really, really enjoying them. And actually, to be totally honest with you, I've been very tempted about taking the kit and just making more carded nests to make more yarn, because I've just been enjoying spinning the carded nests so much, and like they're just so simple. So this is the medium gray. So if you look at the kit, the medium gray is this one in the middle, and then there's the white over here. Excuse me, sorry. And then there's the white over here, and then we've got all of the colors clean up here, not carded into all of this down here. And so what the carded nest ended up giving me was this beautiful white, very, very pastel, just like what we would expect. And this is wound into a plying ball of 2-ply. And then this is the gray. The colors are not quite so pastel. They're a little bit sort of brighter. There is some kemp in there. That's what we call kemp right there. And it's just falling out naturally. It's just coming apart. It doesn't want to be a part of the yarn. It just naturally just comes out. And but the colors are a little bit more jewel toned, a little bit brighter, not quite as pasteled because they haven't combined with the white, which is really nice to see. And then I've actually been spinning on my Russian support spindles for the dark, for the black. And the reason for that is because I've kind of fallen back in love with these spindles. For some reason, I have 3 of them, but I cannot find the third one. So I've got my 2 here that I have been able to find. I'm actually worried that I've lost the third one, but I'm just hoping that it pops up somewhere and that I'm able to find it. These Russian spindles I actually found at Knit City years ago, probably in 2014, maybe 2015, and they were marked down. They were on sale, and they're by a maker in Alberta, and I actually don't know who it is or where they are, or if they're still making spindles. I have no idea. But they were in the Ancient Arts Fiber Crafts booth, and Carolyn had a whole bunch of these left, and I think there was only 3 of the Russian spindles, and then there was a few drop spindles left, and there was a couple of Turkish spindles, which I had sort of not gotten into yet. But these Russian spindles were sitting there, and she turned to me and said, those are really nice spindles, and I'm surprised that they're still here, but they have a really nice weight to them. And if you're just starting out on support spindles, I would really recommend them. And I guess it was just kind of the right place, the right time, and they were the right price, because I think I got the 3 of them for under $50. I bought all 3 of them, and I wish I had the third one, because the third one is beautiful. This one was my favorite of the 3. I don't know what the woods are. Anybody who's a wood expert out there, if you want to weigh in, I think this one is maple. I think. Camera's having a little bit of trouble knowing where to focus, but I think this one is maple, but I'm not sure about this one. It might be walnut. I'm not sure. What I really like about this one is the lip up here. So when you're flicking, if I just do it in my palm for you guys, it just rests in your finger really beautifully. So these aren't super fast. They don't go for a really super long time. They don't spin for a long time. And I remember Sandra, who is a member of our guild, she has a whole bunch of these, and I remember her seeing them and seeing me playing with them one night at Guild, and she said to me, oh, I used to love those spindles when I first started support spindle spinning, because she only spins on support spindles, and then she plies on her wheel. She said, but I kind of got away from using them because I just found that I was constantly flicking them because they don't have a long spin time. And so she had sort of naturally navigated towards other types of spindles. I think mostly Tibetan, if my memory serves, but I might be wrong. Diana, you would know. And so anyways, I just on a whim, I've been kind of going through all my spindles, trying to find what I have, trying to figure out what I want to keep, figuring out what I want to let go of and what I want to send on, like the one for Mary Jo from last week's show that she won. And just trying to figure out kind of where along the spectrum I want to, how many of these spindles I want to keep, how many I want to have, how often am I going to use them, etc., etc. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to spin the third section of the breeding color study on these spindles exclusively and just sort of see, well, I started spinning and it was like yarn heaven. The mix of the yarn, the slightly heavier spindle, the slightly slower spin time, or the shorter length of spin time, it was perfect. I just absolutely have enjoyed this. Of the three so far, this has been the most enjoyable. And I don't think I have them right here. I think I put them away, but I've been using one of my ceramic spinning bowls, and it's been absolutely perfect. The spindle spins beautifully on it. It keeps spinning, and then I can go ahead and draft out and continue to spin. And I really have found that, honestly, it's been just really enjoyable. I spun all of this. We watched a movie on Sunday night. The kids were exhausted. I'm not sure why they were so tired, because we'd had a really quiet weekend. I hadn't, but they did. I had to call in sick on Sunday because I was so not feeling well. And I had a really super quiet day, and so in sort of late afternoon, early evening, we put on a movie and we had dinner in front of the movie, which was really, really nice. We haven't done that for a while, actually, because the weekends are busy, you know, and with me at work, and Mike's got stuff he wants to get done, and there's only so much time, right? 2 days is not a long time to get things done. So I started spinning on this, and I spun all of the first nest. I just kept spinning and kept spinning and kept spinning. And that's the culmination of all of that first nest on that spindle. So it's built quite well. Like, there's quite a bit of yarn on there if you kind of compare them, you know, and it's been building really nicely. And actually, one thing that I found is working really well to load the spindle cop is I've been putting it against my sternum here and winding on, like, sort of winding like this to get a really tight cop, and I've been finding that's been really working. I know Ange of Yarn and Yarns, or Rainbow Ange on the Slack channel, and on, I think, Ravelry as well, she winds with the spindle upside down. That works really well, and I've been finding to get a really nice tight cop that this has been working really well for me as well. So just another little tip. See if that works for you. Let us know. So I am taking this project with me this weekend. It's all packed up and ready to go, although I think that I'm going to be pulling it out before then to work on it at soccer tonight and tomorrow night, because I'm recording this earlier in the week and putting it together slowly as the week goes on. So I'm also going to take my Rolag set. I don't know that I'll get a chance to actually work on it, but I have my Bosworth spindles with me, as well as my Hound Design lace spindle, and I wanted to see how they compared. So I thought that I would bring them just to see if I get anything done. Sometimes I find when we go on these retreats that, because this is the third one we've done, we had a couple of years where there was a big group of us, and so then 3 of us thought, well, maybe if we're just going to kind of dip our toes in and just sort of see how we feel, let's see how it is, the 3 of us, and see, you know, how it goes. I find sometimes we sit a lot because we're chatting and we're spinning at our wheels, and this time around Felicia's going to bring her table loom, and I just find that by sort of the middle of the second day, I feel like there's like just a lot of sitting. So I thought I would bring my support spindles, or sorry, my suspended spindles, just to stand up. Even if I just start one of the roll legs and get it started, and just sort of see how I feel. If I come home with 3 of them spun on 3 different spindles, I will be happy. That's kind of my goal, and it's not a big goal. That's easy to accomplish. So that's that. All right, let's pivot to community participation, and I'll see you guys on the other side, and we'll chat about what everybody's been working on recently. So I'm actually really excited about this, and I'm just going to fix my screen here, make it feel like the live stream by fixing it while we're chatting. I'm really excited about some of these shares actually this morning because there's some, you guys have been, it's been really incredible to see how much you guys have been making and how much you guys have been working on. And just the how prolific you guys have been recently. Like I've really noticed in the last probably 3 to 6 months, there's been a real uptick in the amount that you guys have been sharing. And it's just amazing to see for one. And secondly, I think that there's a certain workmanship or work personship that has really come through in our community, where people came in a few years ago and they were sort of struggling, they were sort of, you know, beginners, and now they're mentoring those who are coming in now. And we're seeing that uptick in how people's skill has increased, people's support of one another has continued to increase, because that's been there right from the get-go. But just how prolific people are and what they're making and what they're sharing has just like skyrocketed. It's been amazing to watch. And thank you for taking the time to share. I know there are multiple platforms for people to share, and I know there are people in our community that are part of multiple communities. And just the fact that you take the time to come into the Slack channel, go onto the Ravelry group, and to share your stuff, it's really amazing. So thank you so much. So this first one is our breed and color studies currently. This is on our Jacob. And this is actually from Suzanne. So we talked about this briefly last week because she had a couple of the skeins finished and she had photographed them. And then we had the opportunity to go ahead and she posted more photos after she had posted the original photo and said, I'm done. So I wanted to be able to share with you sort of the rest of what she finished. So she used Crafty Jack's the mini bat set to create a gradient set by combining different singles into 2-plies. So she's taken the kit to sort of, and the carded nest to be able to go across from a clean sort of light, medium, and dark to adding in 2 more in between that are gradients, that sort of creates a gradient, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. And when I saw this, I was like, maybe that's what I'll do with my kit, because I'm really struggling with what to do with the in between. And I just love this. For me, I would end up with a little bit bigger skeins for the 2 that go between the white and the gray, and then the gray and the black. But I just thought this was brilliant. I thought this was such a great use of the fiber. I thought it was a great use of the spinning time. Suzanne did it as 2-ply. The first skein from left to right is plied with 2 of the white singles. The second skein combines 1 white with 1 gray single. The third skein combines 1 Crafty Jack's gray with the plain gray that she had from her Jacob from her fiber stash. So that's the rest of the fiber on the bottom there, spun as a 2-ply skein. And then skein 4 in her set combines 1 gray singles with 1 black singles, which of course gives her that gorgeous textured marling. That skein to me is the most interesting. So it's the 4th one over from me. So it's on that side, the 4th one in next to the black skein. To me, that one's the most interesting. It's got the dark and the light. You can still see the jewel tones and the color coming through. It's just perfect. And then the final one is the 2 black singles. The large skein at the bottom is the first of 2 or maybe 3 that I'm spinning from the rest of the plain gray Jacob in my stash. I have really loved playing with combinations in this study, an idea I got from Katrina speaking about this possibility on the Wool and Spinning podcast. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing, Suzanne, and thank you for taking the time to come in and to share. So this one is from Amanda. This is for our luxury fibers along, and I just thought these photos were beautiful. This is her husband. Fun with 100% undyed yak. So this is yak spun and plied. It's a spun 2-ply worsted to create a fingering weight yarn for gloves. And this is the yarn that she spun. It's just absolutely beautiful. Dense and warm, my husband loves his new gloves, just in time for sub-zero temperatures. It will be fascinating to see how well they wear over time. And the knitting pattern is Yantar Gloves by Anna Zuraleva. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it is in the show notes. Amanda included it in her notes, and actually it's in the Slack channel as well. But isn't this fantastic? Our luxury fibers along is going to the end of the year, and in December we're going to be looking at spinning Mowatas or silk hankies. So definitely get if you have any of those in your stash, make sure to pull them out and have them ready to go for December. That's what we're going to be focusing on in the wool circle, and we'll also be focusing on it in our spinning pearls, which is the content that everybody gets as a patron from the coffee circle up, and that'll be really fun. I'm actually really looking forward to spinning them. We haven't done them in our community yet, so it's one thing that we have not done is silk hankies. So that'll be, I'm looking forward to it. There's a few things actually, before we move on, there's a few things that we haven't done in our community yet that we did this year. So we did cashmere this year, we did kiviot, we did, we're going to be doing silk hankies. Pygora was another one. We haven't taken a close deep dive into llama before, or at least not for a very long time. Yak was another one that we had done. What else? There was a few things that we hadn't looked at before, and that was really great to be able to look at those fibers for the first time, and cashmere, and to be able to do a deep dive, and then with the expectation that we'll come back to them later and use our learnings that we've sort of accrued between this time and that time to put that into our fiber next time when we come back to it again. So I'm really looking forward to that. Also part of our luxury fibers along, this is from Ina. She shared this. I thought this was just amazing. This is Chiangora, however you say it, sort of in your part of the world. So for those who don't know what Chiangora is, it's dog fiber. So this is from Ina. I did spin some golden retriever yarn and knitted some fingerless gloves for me. I'm not sure how they will hold up to wear and tear. Please keep us posted, Ina, because I am actually really, really curious. But there's more where these fibers came from. That made me laugh. Golden retrievers are always producing more fiber. They are just, that's one thing I wish from, Charlie didn't have an undercoat. He was very, very sleek and almost kind of skinny. And we used to call him Fish because he walked like a salmon, which was one of the reasons why they never wanted him for breeding. So he was the runt and he walked like a fish. So we would call him Fish, or we call him Big Fish or Sea Fish, like Charlie Fish. And he had all these nicknames, but the one that really stuck was Fish. And but he didn't really have an undercoat, so he's very sleek, almost kind of Labrador Retriever kind of a look, but longer hair. But Charlotte had like an unbelievable undercoat, and she was always blowing it because she was so hot. And I'm actually surprised that she lived as long as she did, just because she was so hot all the time. Because the higher the metabolic rate of an animal and the larger they are, especially more so in dogs than in bigger animals, but the faster the metabolic rate, they tend to not live as long. And so the and you see that in humans as well. And so she was constantly blowing her coat because she was so warm all the time, because she always had this downy undercoat. I'll see if I can throw a photo in here of her. I don't know if I have any photos of her that would really show her undercoat, but she's constantly blowing it. I do kind of wish I still had some of her fiber. And when we did the 51 yarns spin along based on JC Boggs Faulkner's book, we followed her book like a study as a community. When we came to the Chiangora, I was kind of bummed that I didn't have any of Charlotte's fiber, and I thought about getting it off of her after she had actually died when we were on the way to the vet, but it was such a blur, and I think just the shock of it all, I just didn't have the wherewithal to follow through. But we'll have dogs again in the future, but I have to admit, Chiangora also gives me the heebie-jeebies, so there's a part of me that's actually kind of really thankful. Anyhow, Ina says the color is somewhere in the middle of these two photos. I really like the shade. It is somewhat heathered, which gives it a bit more color depth. The yarn is quite fuzzy and it's soft enough, though I wouldn't want to wear this around my neck. I totally get that. Dog hair is, it's a little bit prickly, so I can understand that. So this is our natural shades along. This is from Brittney. And I thought this was just so fun. So Brittney is up in Yukon. She's in Whitehorse. And they're getting cold now at this time of year, and she's been processing and doing lots and lots of stuff and sharing it on Instagram as well. I don't know if Brittney's here today, but I think she's Crux Fibers, CRUX, I think. Anyhow, she's got some really cool things that she's working on, so definitely check her out. The other day I shared about the beginnings of processing these 2 Gotland BFL Icelandic cross fleeces. So she had posted in the Slack channel some stuff that she was working on. She separated the locks into white tones, gray and black, and she chose to start spinning the gray first. She filled 2 bobbins up with 100 grams and plied it, soaked, thwacked. I'm so in love. It was such an amazing fiber to spin. I spun worsted because I wanted to smooth out any slubby bits. So I'm quite happy with this spin. It's such an honor to spend time prepping and spinning your own yarn. And I'm hoping that if Brittney sees this, she can leave a comment on YouTube, because I'd really like to know more about this sweater. So Brittney, if you could let us know. And is the fleeces, are they from that same gray and white that's in that sweater? Because that's it's naturally colored, that fleece. It's the white up here, and then it's the gray for the body of the sweater, and I'd love to know more. So well done, Brittney. So that's for our Natural Shades Along. Our Natural Shades Along goes on all year. It's a celebration of sort of all of the natural colors out there that we have access to in the spinning world. So it might be naturally colored fleece, it might be naturally colored silk, it might be naturally colored cotton. And it's just sort of the celebration of all things naturally colored. And then we also have a dyeing channel. So for those who are dyeing their own fibers and dyeing their yarns and doing all sorts of different things with that, a lot of people were sharing through the natural dyeing the natural dyeing study group on the School of Sweet Georgia. They were sharing their stuff in the dyeing channel as well throughout the summer, which was awesome to see, because those experiments, some of the stuff that Amanda and Vicky were working on was just phenomenal. I shared it on the podcast in our community participation back in the summer. It was really cool. This is also Natural Shades Along, and this is from Amy, and I just loved this photo. I loved everything about it, and I'm going to be making a whole bunch of roll eggs later today as well, so it's fun to see somebody else making roll eggs. Playing with some raw merino fleece this morning, so this is raw merino fleece. Looking forward to practicing some woolen spinning techniques, and of course, traditionally that's how merino would have been spun, was woolen. Short, fine fibers, they would have been spun woolen. And of course now we can manipulate the fleeces and grow them longer, and we can spin them worsted. And we're used to seeing merino spun worsted, but that's not necessarily how it was spun. Our Zero to Hero goes on all year long. It's an opportunity to celebrate all things sweater spinning and going from fiber to yarn to a finished item, whether it's woven or knit. And this is from Mia. She's been working on her sweater. I don't know if this is going to be a sweater spin, but it's definitely a Zero to Hero. Does cat hair and whiskers count as luxury fiber? Having someone sabotaging me trying to finish up the last 75 grams of singles for a sweater spin. About 20 grams left of a total of 600 grams. The cat's got to go so that I can get this spin done. Beautiful, and I love these colors. So 75% Corriedale and 25% llama, which totally works for our luxury fibers along Mia, because of our camelid study through the summer. So really, really beautiful colors. And when you see these braids like this, they're called humbug braids. As soon as you see a braid like that, no matter how you spin it, unless you take the time to separate all of the colors, they're going to twist together and create a marled yarn. And that's part of the beauty of them, because they come out, it's so analogous and homogeneous. And then when you look at the individual singles and you look closer, they're very, very interesting and heathered. They're just beautiful. The other one is 37% BFL, 12% Swallowdale, and 50% merino. Beautiful, lovely combination, Mia. This is from Doreen, my friend Doreen. She's the one that I got my Jane from. She's up on the Sunshine Coast. This is she spun these various skeins of local fiber, mostly wool, some with mohair, and dyed with commercial natural indigo. The different yarns took the color differently. The end result's a cardigan for me and one for my daughter, modeled here by my granddaughter. I love that. Guess they will have to share. The pattern is flax light, and she steeked it with afterthought pockets. Helical knitting helped to blend the colors. So cozy. I just love this, Doreen. I thought these sweaters were just perfect. And I love that on your granddaughter. Looks fantastic. And these skeins are just amazing. Just beautiful. So much yarn. All the yarn. This is from Ruth. She shared this the other day. I've been juggling a lot of things recently. Here is the first FO to actually emerge. This is Yum by Isabel Kramer. Isabel's patterns, they fit me really beautifully. I love her patterns. And this is one that's been sort of in the back of my mind for a long time. So she cropped it with a split hem, 3/4 sleeves, split the cuffs to echo the hem. And so this is my second Isabel Kramer sweater, and I'm finding her patterns consistently easy to work. Absolutely, her patterns are excellent. Bi-color to use a 1-off skein of Malabrigo, and not quite enough of the hand spun alpaca and wool to go monochromatic, so she had to add in some other color. I have 2 more pounds of the alpaca and wool to spin, but I think I will go for a worsted and dye it. I wanted to use up what was already spun. The hand spun is a 3-ply and varied quite a bit in grist. Some of it was really overspun and overplied. I put it back through the wheel, unplying, and soaked the skeins again. I alternated hand-spun skeins every row throughout. Steam blocked improved the hand considerably, and I may go back and reinforce the neckline. That's what I did with this. I reinforced the neckline, and I have to admit, it feels a lot better. Sometimes you just have to do it. Sometimes a simple cast on at the neck edge is just not enough. You know, sometimes we just need a little bit more. Okay, so next up we've got one from Lyon. This is sample spinning and play. The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct. That's from Carl Jung, and that kind of grounds our discussion of samples and sampling and playing and just approaching our spinning with that humility of just creating something. So this is from Lyon. She shared this last weekend. I played Halloween bat made by a local dyer, Urso Yarn Company, with local Dorset fiber. So bouncy, springy, really fun. No color management, just spinning across the bat. I set up by the lake and spun. It was fun and relaxing. I love this yarn. The yarn is uneven and a bit messy, but will still work perfectly for plain fingerless mitts. It's beautiful, Lyon, and thank you for a little bit of Halloween inspiration. This is from Sarah. This is our finished spin. I'm pretty pleased with this one. It's 108 grams, 200 meters, and looks to be worsted Aran weight-ish. The fiber is 100% Spanish merino from a wild spinster. I hope it doesn't come over as tooting my own horn to say I feel like I'm finally producing yarns I really like on a consistent basis, and this is one of them. Absolutely, Sarah, that is the reason why we were here. It is not tooting your own horn to say that you really like something that you have created. This is beautiful. Well done. And I love the prayer plant that's in behind there. Those are some of my favorite house plants. I just love them. All right, this next one is from Maggie. Maggie's been a bit quiet recently. I think she's been really busy, so it's so good to see and hear from you, Maggie, and to hear how you're doing. I finally finished a spin. This is 8 ounces of fin from Hello Yarn. I was hoping I'd have enough yardage for a love note, but I don't think this is enough, even though I have not counted it yet. Pretty pleased. I don't want it in the stash long. Beautiful. I love these colors. Gold and purple. It just works. It's that complementary kind of slightly split complement. You know, you've got the dark purple with that gold ochre. It just works so, so well. Thank you for sharing. So here's some weaving. We haven't had weaving on the podcast a ton. We've had a little bit, but I've really noticed that with the OHS Master Weaver going on in the community, and that seems to be sort of what a lot of us are talking about lately. So I'm sorry to those who aren't part of it, that are kind of watching from the sidelines, because it has been coming up a lot, the OHS Master Weaver, and it's because it's on a lot of our minds. You know, Unit 1 is very heavy. It's the heaviest of all of the units sampling wise. And I think many of us are sort of consumed with it right now. So it has come up quite a lot. So thank you to those who are sort of watching from the sidelines, maybe not super interested, for just being patient for a couple of months while we work through this work. But this is from Laura. She shared this via Ravelry. She has a loom and she used to weave a lot, mainly baby wraps, scarves, and towels. Her biggest project ever was a bed cover for a double bed. So she just went to her loom she just lent her loom to one of her crafting friends. As she lives with 2 cats now, and the loom would have to sit in the basement in pieces for the last few years. We got a couple of kids out of the house and I get my own crafting room. That's awesome. But she also had woven fabric for a coat. She'd almost forgot about it, but today Rachel talked in the live stream about weaving fabric with hand spun for a coat. So my coat is of course not woven with hand spun, as I only started spinning 1 year ago, but I'll share it with you anyways. The warp is cotton and the weft is 100% wool. I just love this. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Sewing was a bit complicated as hand woven fabric tends to unravel, but I'm super happy with the result. Amazing. So we were actually talking about hand woven fabric the other day, and the fact that it does tend to unravel. And my grandmother used to sew a lot with fabrics that were more slightly more open in terms of how they were woven, and made a lot of very highly specialized outfits for different things that she was involved in, because they had both, my grandfather and her, they both served in the Canadian Army. So through the 50s and 60s, well, the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, they had a lot of army related things to go to. And of course, my grandfather was in his military uniform, his army uniform, but she was allowed to wear civvies, civilian clothing. And so, but she had to be very fancy. So lots of like suits and, you know, that type of a thing. And very tailored and so on and so forth. So what she used to do is, so my mom and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and if I've already shared this, I'm sorry, but what she used to do is take ultra lightweight interfacing once it was invented, and she would actually interface before she would cut the fabrics, and that would help a lot. And then what she did before ultra lightweight interfacing was invented, because my mom figures that probably she started using that in the late 50s, early 60s. My mom's not sure that she's right about that, but that's sort of what she remembers. Before that, my grandmother used to hand baste all of the pieces before she cut them out so that they wouldn't completely unravel on her. Isn't that amazing? It's incredible. I mean, really beautifully handmade clothing, that's what you do, right? You do it all by hand, or what you can do on a machine. It has to be really done well. This next one is from Hanta. Thank you so much for sharing, Hanta. This is one of my latest weaving with my hand spun as warp. This, and also currently on the loom weaving hand spun for both warp and weft. So here are a bunch of her stuff that she's been working on. I love the colors, just beautiful, and her weaving is lovely. She's weaving here on a rigid heddle. Just fantastic, Hanta. Thank you so much for sharing. And lastly, this one is from Barb. I had to share this just for you guys who are not weavers to see how complicated weaving can be. And for those of us who are on our journey of learning how to weave, or sort of further along, just to remind ourselves with some humility and just some sort of, yeah, humility of what can happen. So Barb says, it's so ridiculous. I missed an entire repeat of a warp, one broken thread, and floating salvages. Looks like stalactites coming off of the loom. So she's had to fix it all with these cones that you can buy for when you're doing floating salvages and different things. Crazy, Barb. So I hope the weaving is going well. I hope that it's not giving you too many headaches. So thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for being here. I really appreciate you all spending the time and taking out an hour out of your Saturday morning to spend it with me. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. I hope that you're enjoying some lovely weather wherever you are, and that you're spinning or weaving or knitting or crocheting or whatever it is that you do up a storm and making to your heart's content and heart's delight. I will see you guys next weekend back here at the same time, same place for the live stream. And I look forward to sharing with you what I get done this weekend on my making weekend. So until next time, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy weaving, happy all the things. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.